Today is February 24th, 2022. I am Gabriele Fellows with the Museums of Lake County, and this is an oral history interview with Joan Moss. Joan, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
What can you tell us about your name? Were you named after anyone?
Joan Moss. No, when I got a divorce, I liked my name Moss, and I kept it.
Oh, okay. What was your maiden name?
Lauer, Lauer.
And does that mean anything?
It's German. My father was born in Germany, but he was born in the mountains there, between Germany and France. What are they called? Anyway, he came from Germany when he was 2 on a ship. Oh. With his family.
Oh, what year was that?
I'm not sure. It was right after the Titanic had crashed.
Oh.
And he wrote a book about it. And I guess my parents had an agreement with their relatives to run a general store in northern Minnesota. And they figured that the officials who operated the ship would be more likely not to crash after the Titanic crashed. Mm. And they went over. My father's sister was born while they were traveling on the ship.
Oh, wow. So do you have siblings?
I have 2 siblings. My older sister, Betty, is deceased, and my younger sister, Kathy, is living in Wisconsin.
Do you talk to them a lot?
I try. Betty's gone, but I'm mailing a book to my sister, Kathy, because her messages are full. I'm determined to have a relationship.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure that she agrees.
What is your date of birth and how old are you?
I'm sick. I've been telling a lot of doctors. I was born 6/22/44. I am 77 years old.
And what were your parents' names?
My mother was named Wilma Leitner, and she was from southern Minnesota. And my father's name was Joan. He was from up near Duluth, a small town called Fairbanks. Not Fairbanks, Alaska.
Where were you born?
When were they born?
Where were you born?
I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Do you remember what hospital?
Probably, I think General Hospital.
And where did your ancestors come from?
My mother was always vague about her ancestors. I don't think she knew who her father was for sure. My grandmother attended Grinnell School in Iowa, and she was disinherited, I believe, by her family when she came up with Wilma. So we're not sure who Wilma's real father was. We think it might have been some kind of Native American or mixed blood. But my mother had dark hair. We all had dark hair. Most people in Minnesota had blonde hair. And she was quite a terror. She was the college librarian. And she would go to the fraternity houses and demand the books back. That's at Hamline University. My father was a woodsman up in northern Minnesota. He was a football player, and he got a scholarship to Hamline University where my mom and dad met.
Oh, nice. What was Minnesota like growing up there?
Well, I froze my knees in the wintertime catching the school bus, but I would wake up at 6:30 in the morning and take my skis out to the local golf course and teach myself how to winter ski. As a teenager. I can't believe I did that, but I did. I was very physical, but at the same time, I loved to read.
What kind of things did you read?
What kind of books did I read?
Yes.
Just about anything. Right now, I'm focusing on some nonfiction, and I have become a freelance journalist. I've been published in the Chronicle, etc., some big stories. But I like to read anything. I I like to read what's real and what's true, because I have a difficult time discerning what is real and true. So I like to read what is nonfiction.
What does that mean? You have trouble discerning what's real and true?
I have a big imagination.
Can you elaborate?
I don't imagine things being there, but I do think a lot.
Mm-hmm. Who would you say raised you and why?
Who what?
Who raised you?
I think my mother and father raised me. My mom never kept us from arguing and fighting and screaming. And my dad was always there. He was always quiet and chewing. I was on the left when he ate his dinner, and he was always chewing and quiet. But among the three of us, I think I took after my father. But I am a musician, and I insisted on majoring in music in college, and my mother and I fought about that a lot, because her sister had been a musician and tried to major in music, and they told her sister that she didn't have any talent. So my mom and I disagreed a lot. But I went to Hamlin and I got a prize for writing a part of the Catholic Mass.
Oh.
I got a school-wide second prize of the whole university for writing a part of the Mass.
Wow.
And it was coffee that helped. I had 7 cups of coffee the morning I did it. It didn't take long. Cool.
So what did your father do for a living?
What?
What did your father do for a living?
He was a history major at Hamlin, but he worked at Montgomery Ward's department store. And he worked at every department that was available. I can remember him coming home talking about the little baby chicks. He had little baby chicks he left the night before.
Oh, little chickens?
Montgomery Ward was a kind of like Sears is today, but they had a lot of equipment and a lot of animals and a lot of things that the farmers in Minnesota needed. A lot of different departments.
How long did he work there for?
His whole life.
Wow.
But he also enjoyed teaching citizenship. He taught citizenship for the International Institute of International Institute. And with the teaching he did, he taught them a lot of history, the people who wanted to be citizens. He taught American history.
Oh, okay.
He really enjoyed that.
What did your mother do for a living?
She was a frustrated housewife. I can remember her running around and throwing things on Saturday. And I was a little bit afraid of her, but when my little sister turned 5, she became a college librarian at the place where we all went to college, Hamlin University. And after that, she was happier.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And you had some siblings, you said?
Yeah, my older sister was Betty, and my younger sister was Kathy.
And where do they live right now?
Betty died from a traffic accident. We never knew if it was on purpose or not. She was a medical technician at a hospital. She tested blood, and she lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She had been married, and her husband died, and then she got married again. And my little sister Kathy she's in Wisconsin. She got a master's in counseling from the University of Wisconsin.
Nice. Do you know how your parents met?
Yes, they both went to school at Hamlin University. And they dated for 7 years before they got married. My father was meant to be the Catholic priest.
Oh.
So it took him a long time to decide.
Wow. Oh. How long did they date before they got married?
7 years.
7 years. What are some of your earliest childhood memories?
My earliest childhood memories? I as I said, going out to the golf course and teaching myself how to ski and swimming. I did a lot of swimming in the lakes in Minnesota. I think singing, piano lessons as a child, and my earliest memories, fighting with my older sister. She was quite intimidating. She tried to make fun of me all the time.
Oh.
And she was very ashamed of me.
Really?
In high school. When I was tied for first place in band with the clarinet, instead of feeling proud, she was embarrassed.
Really?
Yeah, she was embarrassed about me.
Oh. Did you have a best friend as a kid?
I had a lot of best friends. I had a friend, Carol Hendrickson. She lived next door and we'd play. And she'd say, "What do you want to do?" And I'd say, "Read." She would discuss it with me as a friend because all I wanted to do is read. And I had a friend named Kate Eddy in St. Paul. And I had Janet Watson in high school, my best friend. I kind of can't recall who was my best friend, but I was president of GAA, Girls Athletic Association, a swimming sport head, and at 16 I became a Red Cross certified lifeguard.
Oh, wow.
And at the age of 18 I became a certified Red Cross water safety instructor. So I had a lot of different things I did. I was interested in music, and I started the guitar after graduating from college. But the guitar folk singers in Hamlin really impressed me. And I guess Bob Dylan sang on University Avenue, a block from my school, but I never saw him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And in school at Hamlin, it was a Methodist college, but I had a job as an organist at a church.
What was that like?
It was very anxiety producing, but it was what I really believed in. And it taught me how to the keyboard on the organ. I was never too good at the keyboard. I was much better at the guitar.
So when was the first time you got a guitar?
The first time I got a guitar, my ex-husband bought me a guitar at a Bay Area music store in San Francisco. I can remember that. A little Franciscan 12-string. It was a medium-sized 12-string.
How old
I
were
can
you?
remember that. I was about 24, 25.
And what'd you do with it?
Learned how to play it. I already knew how to play the guitar because I borrowed a few, and I loved to sing folk songs. So I used the guitar to accompany myself when I sang folk songs. I taught myself folk songs. And I played at my husband's churches. He was a minister.
Oh. What were some of your favorite folk songs to play?
One of my favorite songs back then was the riddle song, "I Gave My Love a Cherry," etc. And another one of my favorite songs was "Dona, Dona, Dona." But I started writing songs right away. And I used songwriting to solve my personal problems a lot of times. When I was getting my divorce, I wrote a song right there in the middle of Kelseyville called "The Bad, Bad Woman of Kelseyville." I thought that everybody thought I was a bad, bad woman. And I probably was.
What are some of the lyrics of that song?
It's kind of a autobiography. I used to be a preacher's wife. Nobody knew my days of grief and strife. I'd give and give and never get. Most of my needs were never met. Now I'm learning to love myself. Now I ask and I get help. Now I'm learning to look outside. There's a brand new world on the other side. And the people stop and they stare, but I don't really care. Only God can see and watch what happens and see what's happening to me. I still sing the song.
Cool.
But it was banned by one of the church ladies So I sang it to the substitute teachers class. I was a substitute. And I sang the song at the Pear Festival, but I sang it to the class of seniors. Because I wasn't allowed to sing on the street, that song.
How come?
Because I was the bad, bad woman of Kelseyville.
So, did you go to college?
I did. I went to Hamline University in St. Paul. I was a music major, much against my mother's disagreements. And I did get on the dean's list.
Did you get a bachelor's degree?
A bachelor's in music education.
Wow.
And then I went to a seminary.
What's a seminary?
A seminary is a place where you go to become a minister or a sacred musician.
Oh.
And I got a scholarship to go to Boston University School of Theology.
Wow.
And that's in Boston.
Did you go?
I sure did.
Cool. How long were you there for?
1 year.
Did you graduate?
No, I only went 1 year.
Oh. Then what did you do?
I got married
Okay.
to one of their students.
So, who did you marry and what was his name?
I married James David Moss.
How did you meet James?
He was James David Moss. His name was David. I met him at the seminary in Boston. I was a dorm counselor. The seminary people warned me not to be a dorm counselor. But I was. I was a dorm counselor, but everything was in walking distance. The seminary, the dorm, the Charles River, MIT. It was my first taste of freedom. Mm-hmm. My parents were kind of protective of me because when I was 18, I had a detached retina with my eyes. And I think they tried to protect me a lot.
What was your first date with James?
With David?
David.
I would say our first date was availing ourselves of the different dorms' diet. I had a free meal at every dorm, so we'd go around and check out the food at the different dorms and having discussions about theology while we ate.
Oh.
We both had sort of a Hindu philosophy. Mm-hmm. Boston University School of Theology was where Martin Luther King went to school.
Oh, wow.
So it was what you call a liberal seminary.
So, do you remember your wedding day?
Oh, I sure do.
What was it like?
It was fun. It was at the Tremont Methodist Church in South Boston. That's where my husband was an assistant minister. And my parents came out for the wedding, and my sister, Betty, came to the wedding. And my family, a couple months before, I asked my mom, I said, well, do you want me to get married here in Minnesota, or do you want to get married in Boston? And of course she was facetious. She said, oh, Boston, we'll come to Boston. Well, they came to Boston. And my father got permission to marry me from his brother, because they were both Catholic. And my father was kind of still bossed around by his brother, and his brother told my dad that my dad would go to hell if he gave me away.
Oh.
But my dad went to my priest, childhood priest, and Father Buchanan said, you give her away, Joan. You go to that church and give her away. She wrote me a wonderful letter asking me to come and help with the wedding. He says, if it's wrong, I'll take the blame. So that was cool. Mm-hmm. It was really cool that priest stood up for me.
Did you have any children?
I had a son. My first miscarriage was very devastating in Abington, Massachusetts. And after that, I went, David he graduated from seminary, and we went to Greenville, California. That's where my first baby was born. My first full-term successful pregnancy. His name was John James Moss. He's 51.
What does he do? Where does he live?
He's a PhD professor at Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's at a community college, but before that he was in Guam with his wife.
Oh, wow.
for 4 or 5 years.
Does he have
Teaching.
Does he have any children?
Sociology. He has one child.
What's their name?
His name is Aaron.
Aw. Do you ever see him?
No,
Oh.
not much.
Oh.
We have a disagreement about the vaccinations.
Oh, okay.
I'm not vaccinated.
You're not vaccinated?
No.
How come you're not vaccinated? What are your feelings on the vaccine?
I have written to both children about it, and my ex and his wife support me. I early on, even as a married person, I became interested in journalism. And I ended up my name got in the Chronicle under a story about Daisy Benson. And I ended up getting an airline ticket and going to Alaska and visiting 2 Indian women. And then I brought home a lot of documents, and the documents talked about Dr. Alan Cantwell and a book he wrote called AIDS and the Doctors of Death. And back in 2008, 2009, 2005, I was exposed to the thinking of Dr. Cantwell about the origin of AIDS. And according to Cantwell, he was a doctor, and he believed that AIDS began with the hepatitis vaccine put out by the CDC. And he believed that the gay men were given the vaccine in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and that the vaccine actually contained the AIDS virus. And that was back in 1979, 1980. I just reread the book. And it's very much like our pandemic today. Very similar. And Dr. Cantwell was never put in jail. He was a little shy. But I became not fully convinced, but I was enough convinced that I wasn't going to take anything that the CDC gave me, called a vaccine. Like the fact that it might be 80% true. I didn't ever go 100%, but I wasn't going to take any chances. So I have not decided, but I didn't tell anyone else what to do. I just myself didn't take a vaccine.
So what was your first job?
Oh, my first job was as a teacher in Boston. It was at a place called Conti School, an inner city school. It was a rough job. I wasn't used to the culture, and I was trying to teach them music. It was really rough, because I was just a defenseless minister's wife. But what really worked is when I sang to them. I learned songs on my guitar. I had borrowed a guitar or something, and I learned the song Black and White by Three Dog Night. And they could really relate to that because it was like quite a few of them were black and a few of them were Portuguese, and they would grab a song sheet and sit down and try to sing. And then the song by Elvis Presley called In the Ghetto, they really liked that one, and they'd sit down and sing for that. So that's when I first started playing the guitar and singing.
Oh, okay.
So that was good. But I broke contract because I got hit.
How you got hit? What do you mean?
I kept a child after school, and he fought with me about trying to open this door, and it was physical.
Oh, no.
And that's when I quit.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember being actually hit, but I can remember his face and I can remember the fear.
Yeah.
And I didn't take that job in order to be intimidated by junior high children.
Right.
Who were rougher and more knowledgeable about things than I was, and who were making fun of me. I didn't like that.
So what other jobs have you had in your life?
I worked for a number of newspapers. I was a stringer for the San Francisco Chronicle.
Oh.
I was a paid reporter and a columnist for the Record Bee. I worked for the Observer. I worked for a lot of different papers, but as a freelancer. I was never full-time. And then the most important job I think that I had was I was a tutor, T-U-T-O-R, for a federal Indian program called Title V. And I worked at the schools of Konocti, and I worked at Elim Indian Colony. And then I worked for the state program for tutoring at Big Valley. Big Valley Rancheria, where Konocti Vista Casino is now. I taught, actually, the chairman of Elim, I taught him how to read.
Wow. Who was the chairman? What was his name?
His name is Augustine Garcia.
Okay.
And he's now the chairman. It's a very divided tribe, but at the time I taught him, it wasn't. It wasn't that divided.
So when did you move to Lake County?
I moved to Lake County, I can't exactly remember, but it was before my daughter was born. I can't remember the exact year. I lived in the middle of Kelseyville.
Oh.
My husband was minister at the Presbyterian Church, and he was minister at the Kelseyville Methodist Church.
Oh, okay. Are you still married?
No.
Where's your husband?
My ex-husband is back in Wisconsin with a woman named Cedar. They have 2 more children. I had 2 babies with David, and I had my daughter with David in Kelseyville, and I had my son up in Greenville, California. We were in Greenville for a couple of years before we were in Kelseyville.
Oh, okay.
In Greenville, my husband was known as a hippie minister.
He was?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, instead of preaching about God, he'd talk against the war.
Oh. Which war at the time?
Vietnam.
Okay.
He,
Did he get drafted?
no. When he went to seminary, he went back to Yale, and I sang songs about Vietnam vet. That's when I sang Vietnam vet. I heard a sermon and I wrote a song. And then I started writing songs. I didn't have a lot of people I could confide in because of my position. And so I was a little isolated, you might say, and I did do things, but I didn't feel, you would say, real comfortable. I sang songs with the people in a bunch of churches, and we went around and did worship at different churches. That was fun. We were called Sounds of Celebration. That was fun. But I didn't really have a lot of relationships with people I trusted until I left my husband, I would say.
Why was that?
Well, being a minister's wife, you it's kind of rough.
Why is it rough?
People expect you to be perfect. And my husband was expected to be perfect, and he expected me to be perfect. In Kelseyville. He was no longer a hippie minister.
Oh, he changed.
He changed.
Okay.
I wasn't really a hippie either, but he didn't go to demonstrations, and he, I don't know, it was different. I was a lot happier when I left. But I left him, I didn't leave the position, but I was freer after I left the marriage. I stayed in Kelseyville though.
Oh, okay. You did?
My parents bought me a house up on Wildcat Road. I'm still there. It's part of Cobb Mountain.
Oh, okay.
It's not in the middle of town.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you have any pets?
I had horses for a long time.
Uh-huh.
I got a horse when I was first in Kelseyville, and then up on Wildcat, I had a number of horses, 1 or 2 or 3.
What happened to them?
I couldn't afford them anymore,
Oh, okay.
and I got old.
Yeah. So the jobs you've had, you've been a freelance journalist, a tutor. What else have you done?
A substitute teacher, and whenever it got really warm, you know how hot it can get in Lake County, I would go and get a job as a lifeguard.
Oh,
I guarded at Kanaka Harbor Inn, I guarded at Pine Grove, I guarded at Loch Lomond, and I was a Red Cross water safety instructor in Quail Run. I was a member of Quail Run. I taught swimming there for quite a number of years until I got cancer. So I did a lot of different jobs.
until you got cancer?
I did get cancer.
When was that, and what kind of cancer?
I have a diary about it I wanted to give to you. In 2005, I got breast cancer.
Oh. Is it gone now?
I trust it is.
Did you go through radiation?
Yes, 33 radiations.
Oh, wow.
You don't forget something like that.
Yeah. That was probably very hard on you, right?
Yeah, and the chemo was hard too.
Yeah.
And the surgery.
Right. So, tell me about some of the articles you've written. What kind of subjects did you cover?
For a long time, I was an advocate for inmates. I would write about their complaints, and I would do something about them, help them through the legal process. I was never a lawyer, but I loved to watch court. Loved to watch court. The biggest story that I had in the beginning of my career was when the EPA designated Elam Indian Colony Sulphur Bank Mine, near Sulphur Bank Mine as a Superfund site.
What does that mean?
That means that it's on a federal list of dangerous sites that need to be cleaned up.
Oh.
And it was on a Superfund site for mercury.
Right.
They used the mercury to make weapons and to mine the mercury.
When did they do that?
They did it in an open pit mine near Elam.
Okay.
And I was a tutor at the time, and I knew which family didn't want to get tested for mercury, and I knew Sharon Good. She was one of the people from the state who visited the community, and I knew the different managers of the Superfund site. And I was working for KZYX Radio at the time as a paid news person, and I was in connections with the San Francisco Chronicle. Jim Brewer was the city editor. He's the one that took most of my stories. He was one of my mentors.
Oh.
And the day that story came out, they didn't necessarily use my name because the people in Lake County would be mad. They lost a lot of their tourist business the year that it was declared a Superfund site.
Oh, they did.
And I did get it in, and I did get paid for it.
So where was that published, your story?
I think it was in the 80s.
Oh, in the 80s?
Yeah.
And was it in the Chronicle?
Yes.
Okay, so
And it still is in the Chronicle.
did any local news sources cover it?
Yeah, after it got in the Chronicle.
Okay.
It was international news.
Oh,
It went international.
wow.
Superfund site.
Do you remember the headline of that story?
No, it just was the Sulphur Bank Mercury Mine. The president put it on the Superfund site. And there were millions of dollars put into what you call mitigation.
Oh,
fixing it. But we still have cyanobacteria dash methylmercury. We still have that problem.
In the lake?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was there when they called it methylmercury, and I'm still there. And I believe that, of course, I have a lot of beliefs about the cover-ups.
Oh, do you want to talk about some of that?
Yeah, I have documents in which the USGS calls it methylmercury, and the EPA people call it cyanobacteria. But I believe they're the same thing.
Oh, why would they call it different?
Because they don't want to alarm the citizenry.
Oh. Does it affect the drinking water at all?
It affects the mind, it affects the nerves. It's neurological.
Oh.
Methylmercury. Mm-hmm. And it affected the fish. We do have a warning about eating fish. We're not supposed to eat any fish from this lake.
Right, I've heard that, yeah.
Because of the mercury. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're a fixture at the Board of Soups meetings at the courthouse?
You see me, don't you?
I do. You're on TV.
Yes, I don't have a laptop and I don't have internet where I live. Mm-hmm. So I go there, and I've gone there for over 20 or 30 years before Rob Brown was supervisor. And I still go there because I like trials and I like the Board of Supervisors because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to do. It's something that you cannot predict. And so that's why I go there, and I try to do news, and I call in KPFC still, and I'm trying to find a way to get the word out. Because a lot of things happen and never gets in the Record B, because the Record B uses people from Bay Area news outlets to write their news. Nothing gets in about Lake County, hardly.
Really?
Some things do, some people do, some people don't.
Are you writing for any paper right now?
I'm hoping to. I am working on various projects, and what my goal now is to clean up. I'm not a very good housekeeper, and I have papers and papers and papers. And I have things that I wrote that never got published. And what I'm going to try to do is turn them into the Schoolhouse Museum as history and give them credibility somewhere. I send them in to get published, and I don't get published. The reporters today are not the same as the reporters yesterday. They don't say the positive and the negative. They take a stand, and then they don't say the facts. So what I'm trying to do now is turn in some of the papers that I've had that I cannot throw away. I cannot throw them away because they're too important and too valuable. So I'm going to send them to someone who knows, and send them to the museums or send them somewhere where at least they'll be recorded. Somebody recorded. My latest story is froth monsters. It's about Bottle Rock Power Plant. And I was writing on a used tablet, and I turned it over, turned the page over. Here there was a story that never got published. And it's really interesting. It's called Froth Monsters. And it's about the geothermal development and the toxics and what happened, that people got cancer and people were fired, and it was the state, California's Department of Water Resources owned that power plant. And they had all these violations, and people complained about them, and so they finally gave it up. And now the State Department of Water Resources I'm on a committee as a journalist. They want to change it so the Big Valley Surface Groundwater Act will allow them to manage the Big Valley groundwater. Yet they're the ones that created all the violations back in '89. I have a story. I'm going to give it to my church person, and then I'm going to send it away or give it somewhere. It's going to be public comment to the State Department of Water Resources.
Would you call yourself an activist?
Yes.
And why?
Because I treat issues that nobody treats. I don't carry a flag. I don't pour blood over documents. Okay? But if I see something that I disagree with, I will write about it and I will complain. Written complaints. That's my forte. Or I will do research and get all the facts and write them down. And then, like with froth monsters, I wrote it all down. It hasn't been published yet. And then I found a lot of stuff that nobody else will do. I am a complainer. When I don't get published and I think something's wrong and I can prove it's wrong, I complain.
Why do you complain?
Because it's right. I feel that somebody has to. And I give it to the editor, and the editor looks at it, and if it's true, they'll put it out. There are a lot of songs I don't sing in public. The Bad, Bad Woman of Kelseyville, I don't sing a lot. I don't sing Vietnam Vet because the veterans have asked me not to sing it. It makes them cry.
Oh.
And it's like, I don't know why these songs came to me. And the Rob Brown song, I haven't done that in public. But there's one that I'm going to work on with the Indian kids called Get Ready, Rock Steady. And I'm going to work on that. It's about Mount Konocti.
What are some of the lyrics of that song?
She is the earth. She has had enough. She is the earth. She is the earth. Now she will dance. We have had our chance. Now she will dance. Feel the earth dance. She's had enough. She will get rough. She will start to buck. She has had enough. The earth will rock. She will rock and roll. She will take control to get back her soul. She is the earth. She has had enough. She is the earth. She is the earth.
Cool.
And the reason I wrote that is because it was only when Lake County started to inject wastewater into the geothermal wells to keep the industry going. They were running out of water to make steam. So they re-injected wastewater and water from the lake and water from wastewater plants to make more steam because they were running out of steam. And it made Konocti become a dormant volcano. Before then it was considered extinct, and now it's dormant. And I believe, I haven't proven, that because of the activity up at the geothermal development has disturbed the fault lines that are underneath Konocti. And Mount Konocti is now considered one of the most liable to erupt volcanoes in California.
Really?
That's what it says on the internet. USGS, United States Geological Service.
Oh, right.
Survey. And where I live, we get an increase in earthquakes because I believe they were there before, but they're more intense because of the geothermal development.
Right.
That's probably the most important story that I have, other than the vaccine story.
What's the vaccine story?
The vaccine story, I read Dr. Cantwell's book back in the 80s, and then I read Mr. Kennedy, Francis Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I read that book cover to cover. Parts of it made me ill, but I kept reading. And that is the truth about Anthony Fauci and the vaccines. And that's why I still will not get a vaccine.
So what are your thoughts on the pandemic?
What?
What are your thoughts on the pandemic?
The facts on the pandemic are from Francis Kennedy's book, The Real Anthony Fauci, and also Dr. Cantwell's book from back in the 80s. Those are also the facts. And I believe that I have read the Chronicle, I've read the New York Times, I've read the Press Democrat, I've read what the CDC says, but then I've also read what Kennedy documented through the years. And the truth is very, very confusing and very sad and very dangerous.
What do you think the truth is?
The vaccine, they haven't come out with what the vaccine is, what the vaccine really contains. And I think it's something like Armageddon. And we need to pray a lot. I pray a lot.
What do you think started the virus?
I think that according to Kennedy, there's a one-pager. I think they did take the bats from the caves, but then they took the bats, but then they worked with them at the center, at the Wuhan Center in China. And not only did they work with them using biological warfare money. Mm. And there's a page in Kennedy's book where he says it. It's circumstantial evidence. He can't prove it. But he believes that Fauci might have been there creating the virus. I know that's wild. But that's what Kennedy mentions. And I don't think a Kennedy lies. I think Fauci lies. The CDC, the World Health Organization that created the smallpox vaccine that caused the AIDS virus in Africa. I'm spouting off a lot of stuff. I just sent my daughter a book, the book by Cantwell. Mm-hmm. She said she'd read it. My family does not agree with me, my children. Oh. I never forced anybody to believe what I believe. Mm-hmm. But I do believe what I believe. And I don't usually get asked what I believe. And I don't usually find someone who'll listen.
Have you written a song about the virus?
Not yet.
Where have you performed? Where have you played your guitar and sung before?
Well, I kept my music alive because I perform with a mask up at a little market on Cobb. And then I did get the job, a regular job, paid musician, to be the sacred music at the Loch Lomond Catholic Church. I'm up there once a week. And I stayed up there, but I just would show up at this place and sit on a stool and open my case and sing. But I can sing Jimmy Crack Corn. I can sing You Are My Sunshine. I didn't often sing my own songs. So what I hope to do in the future is maybe I'll whip out and appear at the Brick Tavern and sing The Bad, Bad Woman of Kelseyville. As old as I am, you know. I sing it at outside John's Market where the Mexicans are. They ask me if I'm married. They like my songs. I was walking down Kelseyville one day and I heard this guy say something in Spanish, and I thought he was, flirting with me. But another person said, he's telling you that you sing beautiful.
Aww.
That was nice. So I keep singing, and I sing to the kids when I go to substitute. I always sing my own songs. I have a song called Happy Juice. I mean, I'm not all depressed. You can't be.
Have you ever sung at the Board of Soups meetings?
Yes, I sang for Cameron Reeves when he retired. I sang a wonderful song, and he loved it. He just loved it. And it was Cameron Reeves, you serve Lake County well, running here, running there, running everywhere, trying to avoid legal hell. It was the cutest little song, and he loved it. And he had me sit at the table with his family on his retirement dinner. Cameron Reeves was the county council before Anita Grant. And I was young, I was enthusiastic. And he loved the song. And then I wrote a song for Kelly Cox, but he didn't give me permission to sing it. He's a shy guy, but it is body. I have a part that it's a body song, and I'm not going to sing it here.
Okay.
I'm not going to embarrass him.
Have you ever performed at restaurants?
Oh, yes. I performed at Anthony's for many years, and I performed at up on Cobb at various places, and I performed in bars. Yep.
Cool.
I was at the Aurora when it was up and running. I was at Kathy's Inn. I was at Koratai for a year or two or three. And right now I don't have a sound system, but I just show up and sing. I only sing for an hour at this market, but I do sing. I still sing and I still write. And I still swim. I swim almost every day at Quail Run Fitness Center. But I have taught swimming, and I give a music lesson or two. Because I'm qualified to do it. I can do it. Teach people how to read music. Oh, and I gave beginning guitar lessons for both Mendocino College and Yuba College. One night a week.
What was the best day of your life?
The best day of my life, I think it's today, because I'm finally telling you who I really am, and I'm being asked, and I can be honest and share. I'm afraid of telling the truth, but I'm still telling the truth.
Why are you afraid?
Because it's a different opinion than most of the people have about the vaccine and about the pandemic. But I read Kennedy's book, cover to cover. I read the second half again, because I got so sick reading it. And then before, when the pandemic started, I read JFK and the Unspeakable. That's a book by William Douglas, Douglass. My ex-husband had actually met the guy. He wrote a book about John Kennedy, JFK, and who killed him. The conspiracy.
Why is the truth important?
Huh?
Why is the truth important?
Because that's my job. To tell the truth. And to question. To question. When one person says one thing and they're so adamant about it, I'm ready to listen to them, but then I want to find out the alternative opinion. I'm not an alternative person, but I do want to know the whole truth.
What would you say was your greatest accomplishment?
I think my greatest accomplishment was facing cancer, facing a replaced hip, facing eye surgery like I am now, and being happy every day. Anyway, that's my greatest accomplishment. My greatest accomplishment would be to turn an enemy into a friend, which was what I tried to do, what I'm going to try to do with my surroundings.
And what goals do you have for the future?
My goals for the future are to live life in a way that I can accept. I was a pretty heavy wine drinker and pretty vehement man chaser during my wine drinking days. And so my greatest effort is to live in God's love, to try to love others and to live God's love without giving up my soul, without giving up what I consider to be the truth, to follow my nose. That's my greatest accomplishment, my greatest goal.
What haven't we discussed that you think is important for other people to know about you?
I think it's important to acknowledge that at the age of 18, when I was living on campus, I went through a period of spiritual searching, and I had a religious experience of God. And ever since then, I've been trying to search and follow that experience of God. It's caused me eye surgery. A couple days later, I had a blinding, glowing light come. And to live life the way, to love each other. Because here on earth, we don't do that.
Who do you think God is?
I think God is a life force. I think God is the life force. He's in rocks, he's in people, he's in animals, but he's also can move in history. And I can't define God. I can't define God. A lot of people have tried, but I don't define God. We're all a part of God. I think we're all a part of God.
Why do you think we're here?
I don't know. I really wish I knew. But we are here, so we might as well make the best of things. I don't try to answer the questions. I just say my decade of the rosary and calm down and keep going. Try not to hurt anybody. At the same time, tell the truth.
What's the best advice you could give for future generations?
The best advice is to try to love each other, even though we're different.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and for
You're welcome.
sharing your stories.